Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today I am making some pork spare ribs here. We're going to do a method that I'm going to start in the oven, and then we will flash them on the grill to get that char flavor. They do take a few hours in the oven to get nice and tender and pull apart. But first things first, we want to kind of trim up these membranes on the back part of the ribs here. Pulling this one off is usually pretty tough. But if you get a knife under it initially, you should be able to pull the whole strip right off. And I've already got most of it off here, but there's a couple little spots that are giving me a hard time that I'm just going to take my knife and go along and cut that membrane out. Once we have it all kind of trimmed up how we want it, I'm going to leave a lot of this fat and stuff on just to give it the flavor I want. But again, if it is part of that membrane, just go ahead and cut it out of there. But that looks pretty good and cleaned up as much as I can. There was also a little smidgen of meat here. Looks like it has a piece of bone on it. I'm just going to cut that out. But we're not going to throw that away. We're going to use that as well. But once we get it kind of trimmed up to our liking, get the bone off of there, and flip it back over, take a look. There is a little piece here I just want to trim off, nothing crazy. But once we got all that trimmed up, then we're going to rub our pork spare ribs with a rub that I found at the store today. It's a pretty good rub, a lot of flavor in it. So we want to coat it really, really well. And once we get it nice and coated, we're going to work it into the meat with our hands. And then we're also going to make sure we get both sides and underneath any flaps of meat that might be kind of hanging out there. Once we get it good and coated, we're going to wrap it in foil, get it in our oven at 350 degrees. And we're going to check it after a couple hours, but this is a pretty big rack. I think it weighed almost 5.5 pounds or so. So we definitely are going to watch the cook time on it. It's probably going to take a little longer than the 2 to 3 hours your ribs would typically take. But again, once we get that all done in the oven, we're going to take it and fire up the grill, and we're just going to sear it on our grill a little bit. Now with it tonight, I'm making some baby potatoes with garlic herb butter, and I'm going to put that in foil too, so we'll put that on the grill as well. Beyond that, I was thinking of doing some grilled zucchini. So once we get this kind of closer to being finished a little later, we'll go ahead and get those other items on the grill. Probably before we get the ribs on the grill, honestly, because it'll take a little time for those potatoes. But again, good and seasoned on both sides. Make sure we get the edges as well. Want to make sure that seasoning is all over. And again, here's where, the part I was talking about, there's a little flap of meat. Just make sure you work it into the creases. Now that we're all seasoned up, I'm just going to rub it into the meat pretty good. Get that flavor all over. It's not as crucial on this side, but you do want that flavor all over, so we'll get it all in there. Give it a flip. And this spare piece that's hanging out too, I'm going to go ahead and season that up. That'll be a nice little tester morsel, and I'm going to tuck it right in here where there's some room. Alright, all seasoned up. We're going to let it rest a little more. I'm just going to go over it one more time. I'm going to rest with that seasoning on there for just a bit, and then we will wrap it in foil here. I'll go ahead and get my oven started at 350. Let that start getting hot, and then once we wrap it in foil, we'll get it in the oven. Again, check it after about 2 hours. I'm thinking it's going to take closer to 3. But in the foil will help it steam and sear in those natural juices. That way it doesn't dry out on you as well. But there's a good amount of marbleization and fat in there, so it should stay pretty moist. But again, we are looking for that pull-apart tenderness. So once we got that all ready to go, we'll get it wrapped in foil. Alright, now it's all seasoned up. I'm going to set this to the side over here. And I do have a nice bigger aluminum foil that I'm using. This is a, let's see, it's a 18 inch. So 18 inch, we want to use the shiny side to put in the center. So we're going to get a nice big piece of foil here. I'm going to flip it over like so. I did have to switch my gloves because they were kind of dirty from the seasoning and rubbing it into the meat. But being that the folded side is going to be underneath, I want to take the top end, the meat side, and I'm going to put that down in the shiny side of the foil. Any little smidgens of scraps, again, we're just going to kind of tuck them in there like so. Kind of pack it together, not that it's super long. And then we're going to wrap it up. If I do need to go over it one more time, I will. Let's see how we are so far in the amount that it'll actually cover. Not too bad. I probably could have made it a little longer, but not too shabby. So then we're just going to fold up the other ends, and we're going to kind of try to seal it into like a pocket, like so. Looks like I shouldn't need another piece, so we'll check it here in just a second. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's got it nice and covered there. So now we're going to take that, put it back on our pan. I'm just going to wipe off some of the seasoning that I had on there, just so that it's not as messy. Alright. Now we're going to take it and put the meat side up again, so all the folds are on the back side of the ribs. So we're going to bring it over, flip it back over like so. It's a nice pocket there, aluminum foil pocket of the meat. Once my oven does come to temp, I will get it in there and we will start it again for about 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours. We'll give it a look. Alright, so stay tuned for the rest. We'll get there shortly. Alright y'all, so I'm going to get our potatoes ready for tonight. Going back to the trusty foil here. I don't need as big of a piece, but you definitely need a piece big enough to accommodate what you're doing. Remember, shiny side in. It's going to help reflect some of that heat. Make things cook evenly. So I'm going to get my potatoes here. Again, just a bag of baby potatoes. We're going to go ahead and get those on the foil. Once we got them all on there, kind of keep them together, group them together. And I have a little bit of leftover grilled onion from the other day. So I'm just going to pop that in there as well with the garlic butter, some garlic salt, as well as cracked pepper. But I am going to leave them whole. I'm not going to slice them in half. So, next thing, let me get my onion that I had from the other night. Just going to add a little flavor to these potatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right on top there. I also have a little bit of bacon from the other night, so I'm going to chop that up and throw it in there as well. Once I get that all ready to rock and roll, I'm going to cut up my... Just set this aside for a second so I can cut up my bacon. Get out the trusty old little cutting board here. And again, I'm just going to cut it into nice big pieces and then just pop it right in there. Again, this is just about flavor, nothing more. I'm going to leave these nice and big so that when they're cooking on the grill, they're not going to burn. So go ahead and get those. Throw those right on top of the potatoes as well. That should be good. I got one rolling away on me. And I'm using the Kerrygold garlic herb butter. It's kind of a new product to me, but we're going to check it out and see how it works out. But I am going to use this whole stick as well. Again, you just need to cut it up into a couple pieces. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. It's going to melt throughout. So you just want nice big chunks there. So I'm going to kind of set those on there as best I can. Try to keep it all grouped together. like so. Go ahead and get some fresh cracked pepper here. Good and generous on that. Also going to add some pink Himalayan salt. I'm going to add a good amount of that because that bacon will help season it a little, but not too much there. And again, just like the pork ribs, I'm going to try to keep it into a nice pocket and keep it all together. Difference being the folds on this will not be on the inside, they will be pointing up. That way when we do bake it on the grill, it's not going to leak out all that butter. Just kind of group it together there. And I'm going to turn it into like a sachet of foil. Like so. And then the top I'm just going to kind of twist closed. And that's that there. So that'll go on our grill when the ribs are just about, you know, I would say about 2/3 of the way there. This should take a little bit of time in there on the grill, so again, you know, you want to kind of pace everything accordingly. In a little bit I'll show you how we cut the zucchini for grilled zucchini, season those up as well, drizzle with some avocado oil, and I'm just going to grill those directly on the grill grates. Right around the same time that I'm flashing that rib rack, because those zucchini will not take very long. Alright y'all, now I'm going to show you how to cut these zucchini for the grill. You want to leave them pretty big, because if you don't, they'll fall through the grate or it'll be harder to turn them. So I like to cut them lengthwise and cut them nice and thick too, so they don't cook too fast. But of course we want to cut our ends off after I washed it. And these are nice big zucchini, so they probably have a bit of a tougher skin on them. But you just want to come down along the length of the squash there, like so. And I got them about a good, you know, quarter to half an inch thick. Alright, so that's what we're looking for. Now I'm going to place them on a pan over here because we're going to season them up and then drizzle them with some avocado oil. That'll help them to not stick on the grill. But again, real easy. Just, you know, cutting the ends off. Be careful when you're cutting it. A lot of people cut that first one and then turn it on its side, but I'm wanting to keep them pretty nice and whole. So I'm just very careful with my knife here, cutting it right down the length of it, like so. And again, nice and thick. Just set these aside there, like so. And once we get them all done like that, I'm gonna go ahead and get my avocado oil. Avoid seed oils at all costs. Seed oils are the death of everyone, I promise you. So avocado oil, coconut oil, olive oil, use things like that. Alright, so we're going to just drizzle right over our squash here. Once it's nice and drizzled on there, I just kind of want to get it all over on all of this. I'm going to do the same to the other side after I season it up. We're keeping it real simple, just salt and pepper. When we do sit down to eat dinner, I'll probably put a little garlic salt on it just for flavor. But for now, just because we're throwing them on the grill, keep it nice and simple. Fresh cracked pepper, our pink Himalayan salt, and then again, like I was saying, we're going to take them, flip them all over, and when we put them on the grill as well, that skin side to side I'm going to want to put up and get that flesh side on the inside down on the grill. That's going to give us some nice sear on the inside of that squash, and the skin will cook, you know, don't worry about it too much. Now, using the oil that I used earlier, it's still pretty heavy, so I'm going to go ahead and just do a touch of it on this side. We don't need nearly as much. But once it's all spread out like so, we get back to our seasoning. Fresh cracked pepper. I did check the ribs a little bit ago. They're coming along nicely. We are at about 2 hours now, and I'm going to let them go for at least another half hour, 45 minutes, and then we'll check them again. By that time, they should be ready. Once I do get them out of the oven, we're going to let them rest a little bit. And that way, when we put them on the grill to flash sear them, they're not going to get too broken apart, because they will be nice and tender and falling apart. So we want to make sure that the structure of the ribs will be nice and good. But that's our squash. Stay tuned again. We're going to do the grilling items here shortly and put it all together at the end. All right, y'all, ribs out of the oven. Again, we're right at that 2 and 3/4 hour mark. I did test them. We are starting to get that nice pull apart tenderness there. I'm going to leave all the ribs intact, and we're going to just get it out of this foil here. And then once we do that, we'll get it ready for the grill. Be careful, it is hot. Just kind of want to fold it over, keep it all together there. Obviously the foil we won't need, we'll trash that. Looking at our ribs here a little bit better. Yeah, they're nice and falling apart. So we want to let it rest here for a little bit, let it cool off so we can get that nice firmness that we need. Just a little smidgen of a taste. Tasting great. Let it cool off. That'll help it hold together when we go and grill it. Again, on the grill, we're just looking for some flavor, pick up some of that grill flavor. We're not trying to overcook it too much and dry it out. But let it rest about 15-20 minutes, and I'm going to fire up the grill and we'll get that started as well. I did start the potatoes as well in the oven just for a little bit, just to get it a kickstart so that we're not waiting too long out there on the grill, okay? All right, stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. So as I was saying, I'm going to get the squash on first to get a nice sear on it. And then after these are like halfway done cooking, I'll bring out the pork ribs and we're going to sear those as well. Again, I'm just trying to get these on to get a nice cook and mark on them. I put the smaller ones kind of towards the end here. But then after I get good marks on them, I'm going to throw them back in our pan and we will let them finish on the grill, and then I'll get those ribs out here and on. All right, got the squash flipped, got my potatoes out of the oven that I jump started in there, put them on the grill finally. So we're going to let this finish up just a little bit more, and like I said, I'm going to put the squash in a pan, let it finish that way after I get good marks on it, and then I'll have those ribs out here to flash them and put some barbecue sauce on them. Getting pretty darn close to being done. Looks good. I'm so hungry too. Alright, so now that I got that stuff on a pan, I'm going to spread out these coals a little bit more to get some more of that heat. Plus, I don't want them directly under the pan because it might burn the squash. And I need more fire to this side so that I can put those ribs on. But I am going to put my gloves on to get the ribs on there so I don't break them in half. If it happens, it happens. Not too worried about it, but that way they get on there properly. Once I flip them and baste them in a little bit of barbecue sauce, and then let them kind of get tacky on the grill and finish up. All right, ribs are ready to rock and roll. I got the coals spread out to the other side here, so I'm gonna let that kind of heat up just a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and give it another brush real quick, just because moving those coals, I got a little bit of ash on them. But we want those grates to heat up again so that when I put the ribs on, it will be on the direct heat, and that way it shouldn't stick too much. At least fingers crossed, that's kind of what I'm hoping. But I'm going to grab them here with my gloved hands and get it on there, and I'll show you that in just a second. All right, got the ribs on there. It's sizzling, sounding good. I'm going to go ahead and shut the lid for a bit. Let that get a nice sear on that side, and then I flip them over and we'll baste in the barbecue sauce. Getting some nice smoking and sizzling there. I just wanted to show you how it's looking. It is a bit chilly and windy here today, so I'm trying to keep all this stuff hot, so I'm going to keep that lid shut. Now to flip these ribs, it's going to be kind of a tedious task. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fish spatula as well as a long tongs, and I'm going to try to grip it all together and flip it all at one time. Hopefully nothing sticks too bad. I'm going to try to get it up from the grates with the fish spatula first, and then once I get it, you know, kind of dislodged, then I'll get it flipped over, and then we'll put our barbecue sauce on. Flipped over, the heat's getting a little crazy, so I'm going to shut the lid, but I'm going to explain what I'm going to do. So I'm going to get the once I get that flame put out, I'm going to baste that thing with the barbecue sauce and show you what that looks like. Leave it on there for just a couple more minutes, and then it should be ready to rock and roll. I can smell it smoking and cooking. It looks about good. I'm going to leave it shut for just another second, and then we're going to pull it off there, put it on our pan, bring it inside, and get ready for dinner.